So today's guest is author Lesley Berrington. And as well as writing her book series Hattie and Friends, Lesley has opened 3 day nurseries and 2 kids clubs in Lincoln. So through running her successful business over the last 9 years, Lesley noticed that there was a need for more inclusive storybooks, which inspired her to create Hattie and Friends in 2015. So she also visits primary schools to share her books and inspire creativity in Key Stage 1 pupils. So let's just get to the interview because we had such a good chat. Lesley, welcome to the Teachers Podcast.
Hi Claire, thanks for inviting me.
So I'm very excited because we're going to talk about Hattie, and I've got Hattie as well. So tell us more about Hattie and Friends.
So Hattie and Friends is my series of inclusive storybooks. There are 4 titles in the series and they're all about young children having fun days out with their family and friends. They're inclusive because they feature positive images of disability throughout. They have educational content, familiar themes and cute characters so that children hopefully enjoy the story and just absorb the characters that they see and absorb the positive images.
Right, super. So why do you think it's important then for teachers to share these stories of diversity, inclusivity?
Well, the reason why I wrote Hattie and Friends was because at the time I was a nursery owner. I owned 3 nurseries and it came up in an Ofsted inspection at one of my nurseries where I was told that we should really reflect diversity more in the resources that we had in the nurseries. And to be honest, it probably wasn't on my radar at the time. You know, you've got so many things to think about, haven't you? So I went out looking for resources featuring disability and I just couldn't find any storybooks at all that I liked. A lot of the books had disability as a special feature and they would say that the wheelchair was magic or something like that, a superpower, and I really didn't want that in my storybooks. I just wanted it to be incidental so that children just saw disability as part of normal everyday life. So that's how the idea came about, and as I say, that kind of made me realise that it was really important, and I think teachers just need to have books like these in their classrooms so that children will pick them up. It's not a big deal, it's not made a feature, it's just part of their bookshelf. I wrote the first story 15 years ago now, and I can't believe that there's still very little choice out there featuring positive images of disability. I mean, there are some books, but I think I'm right in saying that mine is the only series of storybooks like this. So I think it's really important that teachers just are aware of them and that they have them as part of their bookshelf.
Let's talk more about this being incidental and not being a feature. You know, why is that important? And I suppose, like, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, I know, but if for the listeners.
Yeah. So if you read one of my stories, you don't read anything about disability. It's not explaining that George is using a wheelchair. It's not explaining that Lucy is blind. And I'm sure there's a need for books like that. But the whole idea of my books is that young children reading the stories or having the stories read to them, they're just accepting the fact that George is going for a lovely day at the zoo with Hattie. He has a fun day out. They can be friends and play together despite their differences, and it's not important. There are little nods to the fact that he may need a little bit of extra support, like Hattie will be pushing his wheelchair or something like that. But hopefully that just helps children understand that we need to help each other and support each other, and we do have different needs and differences. So yeah, if they read any of the stories, it's not, the disability isn't pointed out, it's not discussed, but it's very clearly there in the images.
And I think as well, something I think that was mentioned, when you were talking with my VA about being on the podcast, was that Hattie's the main character, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's not all about it either. It's not all about a disability, like you say. And I know you say that you're not explaining it, but it is about, it's just a normal book with normal people from a wide range of backgrounds.
Yes, and hopefully appealing to young children because, all children love to go for a day out, don't they, with their family and friends. The reason why I've written about that is because when I wrote the first story, A Day at the Zoo, my daughter was 5 at the time. My daughter's called Harriet, so of course the main character had to be Hattie. We've never actually called Harriet Hattie, but yeah, she was the inspiration for my character. And of course, all children love to go for days out, don't they, with their family and friends. So hopefully all children can relate to these stories. And when I go into primary schools to talk to Key Stage 1 about being an author, I don't talk about disability and inclusion. Sometimes I might do towards the end, but most of the time I'm just talking to them about being an author, hopefully inspiring their creativity and their imagination, and they will just accept these characters and enjoy the books.
Yeah, and children in Key Stage 1, obviously my Hattie is 5, so she's in year 1. They're just so accepting of everything, like, oh, okay, that's the way it is. And I think, oh, it's so lovely.
Yeah.
And we change, and it's not good. So yeah, I think it's really good. Okay then. So, why are you so passionate about creating these inclusive stories then?
So the main idea came from when I had my nurseries. And so that was really sort of meeting a need that I had at the time. And I thought, well, obviously, if I've got this need, then there are teachers and there are childminders and nursery nurses all over the UK, all over the world that are looking for storybooks like this. So at that point, I was passionate for filling that need, really. But funnily enough, as life goes on, different things happen. We have different life experiences. And now I've found what it's like to be different. And although I don't have a disability, I have serious health conditions which are invisible disabilities, and it makes you realise how you're treated differently, or how people maybe don't understand the needs that you have. And also, I've brought Harriet up from the age of 8 on my own as a single parent. So, I started writing these storybooks before that, but being a single parent has made me realise how you can feel very different. A lot of people would say, oh, well, there's lots of single parents. Yes, there are, but I've had so many experiences, say on holiday, where I've been sitting with Harriet on my own, and all around me there are families of mum and dad and children. And you do feel very left out, very different. You feel like you're being treated differently. So yeah, I'm quite passionate about equality and difference, period. My daughter has been brought up as, with me as a single parent. She's gone through university. She's just graduated with a sociology degree. I'm so proud of her. But I know that as a young woman, she's going to have to work twice as hard in some situations to prove herself. So yeah, for me now, it's all about all differences. And when I wrote the stories, I was also aware of different families and different skin colour, different hair colour, all sorts of things like that. Just even from something really simple, I bought Harriet a Santa Please Stop Here sign, those little signs that you get. And although I'm fair-haired, she's dark-haired, and she looked at this sign, and because the sign had got a fair-haired child, I never thought anything of it. And she looked at this sign and she said, I don't like that. It's not for me. And I didn't understand what she meant. And she wanted to colour the hair in dark. And I think that's really important because she was only, 5 or 6. But she was obviously seeing that was not representing her.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as adults, we just miss these subtle things. Where when I wrote A Day at the Park, which is the last title, it features Toby, who's deaf, and he has a cochlear implant. And at the time, there was a little boy in Harriet's class at school who had a cochlear implant. And I took the book into her class and taught to the children, read the story and everything. And it was just absolutely wonderful to see his face. He was so excited that this child, this character in the story, was like him. And I don't think we consider that enough. He's read so many books with parents, with teachers, and not one single character has looked like him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. And I think children do notice. I actually noticed as well. So we were talking just before the podcast that the name Hattie is never in any of the gift shops. And she's like, Mummy, why can I not find my name? And I said, oh, we've got a personalised book. And it's one of those where I think it's different pages for letters of the name or something. And even when, like, I didn't buy it, I felt a bit aggrieved that it was supposed to be about her, but you couldn't choose what colour her hair was. Yeah. It's not her, because it doesn't look like her.
Yeah, exactly. Or just simple things like glasses on and things like that. So I worked with the illustrator and we talked about things like that right from the beginning. In the Seaside book, they go to the seaside with their daddies instead of going with their mummies, because in so many stories, children characters go with their mummies, and you know, not every child has a mummy, or they might be.
Or sometimes mummy's working.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really important that there's just all these differences, and I've tried to include as many as I can in the stories. Yeah. Sometimes they'll be noticed, sometimes there'll be questions, sometimes they won't. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact that the children are seeing them.
Yeah, and that they can relate to it. Yeah, it's really interesting. Just thinking about so many things there, like daddies taking children to the seaside. You know, in a lot of books, it's about mum doing the school run, but actually, like we do, I do at mornings, Ed does afternoons, and there are so many men in the playground now. But are we really talking about those things? And it's funny because at Classroom Secrets, something I suppose that is quite important to us is this whole how hard is it for a woman kind of thing to be a leader. And obviously at Classroom Secrets I don't feel like it is hard because I'm the CEO, and apart from Ed, the other directors are women, and I feel like he sees it more, and he is already worried about what that means for our two girls. And we were talking about it just yesterday actually at the dinner table, because Hattie had been on a school trip and she'd been learning about Victorians, and they'd dressed up and everything, and she'd been washing, and she said, the older boys in the family, because they must have told the story of her family, went to boarding school. And I was just saying, you know, do you think the girls went to do you think the girls went to school? And she was like, well, yes. And I was like, maybe they did then, but actually in that house, girls would have always been to school. And she was so confused.
Yeah.
You know, and it's what we're still trying to sort of bring back, isn't it?
Yeah, but
just
that's
this awareness
of
difference.
That's a massive step forward. But then I still see the way people talk to boys and girls differently, which they're not aware that they're doing anything wrong or that it's causing any issues. But to constantly be saying to a girl that she looks pretty, or you know, or don't look pretty today, you wouldn't comment on a boy's appearance like that. And you know, you're sort of saying to a boy that he's being smart, and you know, we're using the wrong language to boys and girls, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and
I completely agree.
Yeah, that's a massive change that we need to make, I think, in society. And it's something that it's a struggle, because people kind of say, I know friends of mine, they say, oh, you know, that's ridiculous, you've been too PC and everything. But girls are being brought up thinking it's important to look pretty, and you know, it's not important to, you know, do well at school and achieve in other ways. And yeah, I think things like that just need to change.
And it's the words that people use that they're not aware of, and it's something I'm passionate about as well and think about a lot, especially when it comes to different generations. Older generations in your family don't necessarily realise some of the things that they're saying, but this is interesting. So Hattie's favourite colour is yellow and May's favourite colour is blue, and May started school nursery in September, and since then she started calling things boys' colours and girls' colours. But before that moment, she never knew anything, and her favourite colour's blue. And it's so interesting. And I'm like, well, there are no boys and girls colours.
But that probably shows that you have always been much more aware of this than I was, because as a parent, I was probably doing all these things that I'm saying wrong when Harriet was younger, because her favourite colours were pink and purple. And that's why Hattie is dressed in pink and purple all the time. And that was important to Harriet because maybe that's the kind of I know she did have a train set, but thinking of colours and things like that, I probably bought a lot of pinks and purples and things like that. And yeah, it's just so hard because it's just totally ingrained in society, isn't it?
It is. And I also, you kind of mentioned that, but time's moved on as well. And we've been made more aware of these things. And I think for me, it's not just about colours, but I'm also in quite a privileged position as a leader, where some people have to fight really hard for that. And I know that I try and create an environment that works for me, that also works for others. Like, for example, doing can you be a leader and still do your hours in school hours? Well, mostly yes. Yeah. How does that work? And you just have to think about things differently, don't you? And I think we're on a journey. We're on a journey at the end of the day. But I completely agree. Like, language is so important, and we don't get it right, do we? No. Often we'll step back and go, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." In fact, there was something I said to Hattie the other day. We were talking about money, and she said, "How will I get money when I'm older?" And I said, "You'll get a job." And I thought, why did I say that? I don't have a job. I create things. I'm an entrepreneur. Why did I say you must go down that road? I should have said, well, you can do this, or you can do this. Yeah. And so I corrected myself afterwards. But it's for me, the key is awareness.
Yeah, I suppose it's still a job to earn money, isn't it? But, my daughter's seen me work for other people and she's seen me work for myself. So hopefully she's seen that, it can work both ways. And sometimes you need to work for other people so that you can keep paying the bills while you're working for yourself, that kind of thing. So that's the way people work these days, isn't it? It's all very flexible and people often work part-time here and part-time there. So I think that's quite a good thing to teach our children, that, you can be whatever you want to be and you can work in whatever you want to work. I mean, I've sort of fitted everything around Harriet since she was 8, and so that has meant that Hattie and Friends has sort of been on the back burner for a while. But of course, now she's left home and she's through university and everything, I can spend more time doing it, so that's great.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of gone off on a tangent, but it's been a good tangent because what we're trying to do is just show more of what's real, aren't we, rather than more of the stereotypes in all sorts of different areas, obviously including disability. So if you're a teacher listening to this now, then what actionable steps could you take to ensure that there's a range of materials in the classroom showing diversity?
Well, I think it's really important to just look at the books that you've got and have a book audit and just see how many books feature disability, how many books show gender in a positive way, so they've got a female lead character, that kind of thing. So that they're multicultural, so that they're featuring all differences, all types of families. So that's really important thing to do a book audit, so that you know what the children are actually seeing. It's also important to have images, positive images around the classroom. So if you're putting up posters or on your display boards, making sure that they're featuring disability and other differences. How many display boards would you see in a classroom where there is, say, a wheelchair user, or there is a child who is using a cane if they're blind, that kind of thing. And the other thing is to actually search for books that have differences, because I've published my own series of books, and the reason for that is because when I wrote them, I knew there was a need for them and I believed in them, and so fortunately I just sold the nursery business and I had the money to put into it, and then it's rolled on from there. But if you look at mainstream publishers, there still aren't very many choices in this kind of book, so you need to really search for them, and there are places out there. One really good place is Letterbox Library, if teachers haven't heard of that. They have some really great books. So yes, it's really searching them out, looking at different authors and publishers.
Super, thank you. And obviously there's your books as well.
Yes, of course. So I have my own website, which is hattieandfriends.co.uk. So you can have a look at the website. All the products are on there. There's books and posters. You can buy them on there. They're very reasonably priced, because that was another thing when I was looking for things for my nurseries. Anything featuring disability seemed to be twice as much as standard resources. So my books are £6.99, or a set of 4 for £24, and that includes P&P. So you can order through the website. There's also a blog on there, so I'm regularly updating the blog, and I put images and things on there of things I've been doing, book festivals and all sorts of events. So yeah, if you pop along there and have a look. And I'm also very active on Twitter at Hattie's Friends.
Super, right, thank you so much. I've loved this chat. It's been really, really good. Thank you. I liked the just rabbit hole we went down. But yeah, thank you so much for just talking about a topic that we need to hear about on the Teachers Podcast.
Thanks, Claire. It's been lovely.